Michael stood outside Emma's door, a crumpled letter in hand, grappling with unspoken love and regret. What happens when love remains unconfessed? Memories of their last confrontation haunted him, weaving through the silence like a ghost. He could almost hear Emma's voice slicing through the tension that had grown between them. What if this was the last chance to express my feelings? Michael wondered, his heartbeat echoing louder than the quiet hallway around him. The letter felt heavier than ever. What had it cost him to stay silent? The cold air bit against Michael's skin like a harsh reminder of the emotional distance he had maintained for far too long. Each breath he took was a battle against the chill that penetrated deeper than just the physical. It wrapped around his heart, amplifying the unspoken words that had grown heavy within him. The argument from Emma's engagement party replayed in his mind, a haunting echo that rekindled feelings he had tried so hard to bury. He squeezed the letter in his pocket, the paper crumpling beneath his fingers, a physical manifestation of his inner turmoil. Flashbacks flickered through his thoughts, each one more vivid than the last. He could still see Emma's bright eyes glimmering with passion as they debated late into the night, their voices rising and falling like a symphony. The warmth of those tender moments contrasted sharply with the shadows of his current emotions. There were times when their laughter came easy, when their friendship felt invincible, moments that now felt like shards of glass, beautiful, yet dangerously sharp. Why do you always do this, Mike? Emma's voice cut through the memory, frustration lacing her words during a particularly heated discussion. I do this because I care about you, he had snapped back, the intensity of their friendship pressing against the fragile facade he had built. In that moment, Michael remembered how her anger had twisted into something deeper, a vulnerability that mirrored his own. But now, as he stood outside in the biting cold, the warmth of those shared moments felt like distant dreams slipping through his fingers. Shaking off the weight of his thoughts, he made his way to the bar, a familiar refuge. His confidant, Ben, occupied a corner booth, nursing a drink. Michael slid into the seat across from him, the grimace on Ben's face betraying his own sense of concern. Michael, Ben began, his tone serious, what's going on with you? You've been out of it lately. Michael hesitated, his eyes flitting toward the bustling crowd. It's Emma. Yeah, what about her? Ben's brow furrowed further. I'm afraid I'm losing her. Not just as a friend. I think I might be losing the chance to ever be more. The realization hung heavily in the air between them, the words feeling too exposed, too vulnerable. Come on, man, Ben replied, leaning closer. You know you can't let societal expectations dictate your feelings. You have to tell her how you feel. Michael sighed, the weight of countless unspoken thoughts pressing on his chest. It's not that simple. Every time I think about it, I just freeze. I've built these walls and now I don't know how to let her in. What if I ruin everything? Ben's expression softened, understanding seeping across his features. Listen, the pressures we face, they can be suffocating. But if you don't say anything, she might think you don't care. Distance isn't miles. It's unspoken words. Michael's heart ached at that truth, an insight that resonated deeper than he expected. Those unshared moments had etched distance between them, suffocating the potential for something beautiful to flourish. Yet with those words rang a new resolve. He had held on to that letter for far too long. How long could he keep it hidden? The thought loomed over him, dark and stormy, threatening to unleash everything he had kept bottled inside. As he pondered his next move, the sound of laughter at a nearby table momentarily distracted him, but when he looked back at Ben, he knew this was not a question of courage alone. It was about the possibility of loss. Would he wait until it was too late, or would he find the strength to bridge the distance that had silently grown between him and Emma? Emma sat on the edge of the couch, her fingers nervously fidgeting with the hem of her blouse. The soft hum of voices surrounded her, but she felt miles away, lost in thought, unnoticed by her friends. The warmth of the gathering washed over her like a tide, yet inside, a storm brewed. This party was meant to be a joyful celebration, but it only magnified the distance separating her from her fiancé, Tom. Laura, her best friend, plopped down beside her, a gleam of playful curiosity in her eyes. "You okay? You've been quiet all night. What's going on in that head of yours?" Emma plastered on a smile, but it faltered almost instantly. "I'm fine," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Fine. You've got that look, the one where you're about to explode with thoughts you won't share." Laura nudged her playfully. "Come on, spill. What's bothering you?" Taking a deep breath, Emma hesitated before glancing at the bustling room. Laughter echoed around her, but it felt like an echo of a life she could no longer connect with. "It's just Tom. I don't know. I thought things would feel different by now." Laura's brow furrowed with concern. "Different how? You love him, right?" "Love." The word hung in the air, questioning her conviction. "Sometimes I wonder if I love him the way I'm supposed to. I mean, I care for him, but it's not the same. It's not like when I'm with Michael." A flicker of realization crossed Laura's face, widening her eyes. "Michael, are you still thinking about him?" Emma turned her gaze to the floor, the weight of her unguarded feelings pressing heavily against her chest. "It's hard not to. He was different. I felt alive when I was with him." Her voice broke slightly as she added, "And I miss that feeling, Laura." "Maybe you should talk to him," Laura suggested, her tone both encouraging and cautious. "You can't let those feelings stay hidden forever. What if he feels the same way?" The idea sent a small sting of hope mixed with dread through Emma. "And what if he doesn't? What if I've built something in my head that doesn't exist?" Just then, a chilling breeze swept through the air, causing Emma to shiver involuntarily. Outside, unbeknownst to her, Michael stood close enough to hear every word. His heart ached with a painful mix of longing and guilt as he listened to Emma's confession. The muffled sound of her voice echoed against the walls of their shared history. "You don't want to regret not saying something," Laura prompted, her voice now softer, urging Emma gently. "When it comes to love, sometimes you have to take the leap." Michael's mind raced, grappling with the idea that Emma's heart might still be intertwined with his. Panic gnawed at him. Did he really let it go too far? The thought of having lost her to words left unspoken trapped him in a whirlwind of regret. Will she realize her true emotions before it's too late? He wondered silently, feeling time pressing against him like a tightening noose. As Laura pressed further, Emma fell silent, lost in thought. The wind picked up again, rustling the leaves outside, and it felt like a countdown to confrontation. Just then, the party guests burst into laughter, and the door swung open. Michael, heart pounding, shifted to step back into the shadows. But the moment he hesitated, he caught a glimpse of Laura nudging Emma with fiery encouragement, igniting a fragile hope inside him. With one breath, Michael knew he couldn't stay hidden any longer. "Maybe they don't know I'm just outside." The thought drifted away as he steeled himself for what came next. Unresolved emotions churned within him. Everything hung on the precipice of the unknown. Would he step in, or would he let the moment slip away yet again? The sun dipped low over the horizon, casting a golden hue across the beach where Michael stood, his heart racing with each passing wave. Could a single moment change the course of two lives? He fought against the rising tide of anxiety that threatened to pull him under. He had imagined this confrontation 1,000 times, rehearsed countless lines in his head. But now all he felt was the weight of uncertainty pressing against his chest. Emma approached carefully, arms crossed as if to shield herself from whatever storm brewed between them. Her eyes, usually so warm, were clouded with confusion and flickers of frustration. "Why did you ask to meet here, Michael?" she demanded, her voice wavering just the slightest bit. "This place—" "It's where everything started, Emma," he interrupted, staring out at the rhythmic waves that seemed to echo their shared history. Memories washed over him, a montage of laughter, whispered secrets, and carefree days. Yet, just beneath the surface, the remnants of their discord lingered, stubborn and unyielding. "Memories don't change what's happening now," she snapped, frustration bleeding into sadness. "You can't just dismiss everything." "I know." Michael's voice rose above the sound of crashing waves. He stepped closer, desperation threading itself into the fabric of his words. "I'm not trying to dismiss anything. I need you to understand why I've been so afraid." "Afraid?" Emma's expression shifted, disbelief flashing across her face. "This doesn't feel like fear, Michael. This feels like you've been hiding behind—" "Hiding!" He cut her off, voice trembling. "You think I wanted to hide? Do you think I wanted to let this slip away?" His hands moved to his back pocket, pulling out the crumpled letter he had carried for far too long. It looked worn and fragile like his own heart. "I wrote this weeks ago. I was too scared to show you, to tell you." The wind whipped around them, scattering grains of sand into the air as he held the letter out, trembling. The rawness of his admission hung between them like a fragile thread, threatening to snap at any moment. Emma's eyes widened, the shock evident in her furrowed brow. "You wrote me a letter?" "Yes." His throat tightened, the words finally spilling out in a rush. "I love you, Emma. I always have. But I've been so caught up in what everyone expects, in my own fears. I didn't know how to let you in." Each confession was a cathartic release, the truths that had haunted their silence now flooding the space around them. Confusion washed over Emma's face, her breath hitching in her throat. "You love me?" The disbelief in her voice was palpable, as if each syllable cut deeper into the fabric of the past they shared. He nodded, helpless against the wave of vulnerability overtaking him. "And I should have told you sooner. All those moments, every time I hesitated. I thought I'd have time, that it would be easier, but I was wrong." Flashbacks surged through both their minds, bright laughter, shared sunsets, distant plans, all dashed against the rocky shore of unspoken emotions. How had they come to this point where words like love lay abandoned on the sand between them? The chaotic tumult of their past played on repeat, showcasing the small misunderstandings and harsh words that had eroded their bond over time. "I just wanted to hear you say it," Emma murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. It was a fragile admission, wrapped in the heartache of expectations shattered. "Say what?" he asked, heart racing, as she looked down. "Say that you wanted me, that you cared enough to fight for this." Tears brimmed in her eyes, spilling over as she struggled to hold herself together. The silence stretched out, echoing the catastrophic results of their miscommunication. With the setting sun casting long shadows around them, Michael's heart raced in the quiet. Emma's silence lingered like the ebbing tide, heavy with unsaid words that had defined their relationship. In this pivotal moment, all they could do was stand, raw and exposed, teetering on the edge of understanding and overwhelming loss. What would Emma say when she finally heard Michael's truth? The air thickened with tension, the waves crashing down in a rhythm that felt both destructive and healing. When truth surfaces, it unravels everything they thought they knew about love, but the question remained: what would be left when the dust settled? With the tension of their confrontation still lurking in the back of his mind, Michael found solace in the familiar warmth of his local coffee shop. As he sat across from Ben, he absently stirred his coffee, the whirl of the spoon matching the chaos in his thoughts. Each swirl brought memories crashing back, moments with Emma that now felt heavy with unspoken words. In the silence, clarity emerged, he thought, staring into the cup. He felt an unfurling inside him like a delicate flower blooming in the aftermath of a storm. What had he been so afraid of? Love was never just a fleeting moment. It demanded respect, vulnerability, a firm acknowledgement of responsibility, feelings he had shunned for so long. I kept waiting for the right moment to say something I never had the courage to express, he muttered, shaking his head. Ben watched him intently, the steam from his own coffee forming vapors in the air. You're thinking about her, aren't you? Michael looked up, meeting his friend's gaze, filled with understanding. Yeah, I am. I wasted so much time. I let fear dictate my actions, and now... His breath hitched, reflecting on the enormity of what he had lost. It's not too late, you know. People can change. Ben replied, his voice steady and encouraging. It sounds like you finally get what love really means. You can't just echo societal expectations and miss out on what's right in front of you. Michael nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of Ben's words. He could feel his resolve solidifying as the pieces of his heart started to fit back together, aligning with a new sense of purpose. Love was more than just a feeling. It was a commitment, one he had neglected. Meanwhile, in a cafe across town, Emma sat with Laura, the weight of her own realizations pressed down on her, her espresso untouched as the conversation morphed into a deep dive of vulnerability. I thought I knew what I wanted, Laura. I had it all planned out. Yet, part of me is unraveling at the thought of Michael. Laura leaned in closer, concern etching her features. And what about your fiancé? The question lingered, a tense pause before Emma spoke again. I should be happy. I have everything society tells me I should want. But something feels wrong. I've always felt something for Michael, something raw and real. Emma, Laura said gently, you deserve to explore those feelings. Don't let societal norms dictate your happiness. It's your life. As Emma pondered Laura's words, a profound unease settled in. Could she truly break free from expectations she had held on to for so long? Each sip of her coffee tasted bitter, reflecting her internal struggle. Will I be able to find true happiness if I let go? She whispered, unsure if the answer was one she truly wanted to confront. The clash of their separate thoughts hung in the air, and they both recognized their transformations. Emma's heart raced with the possibility that sat on the horizon, while Michael was rediscovering himself in the reflection of loss. As if they were two ships caught in different storms, their paths were destined to cross once more. In his own moment of epiphany, Michael took in a deep breath, feeling a newfound enlightenment wash over him. Sometimes letting go can lead to the greatest freedom, he thought, the statement echoing purpose within him. He understood now that holding back only served to stifle their potential, not just romantically, but as individuals capable of love and growth. Across the city, Emma clasped the warm mug in her hands, her heart softening toward her choices. A decision loomed ahead, one that might shatter expectations yet could lead her toward a brighter, truer vision of happiness. The question hung in the air: would she dare rewrite her story? Or was she bound to the choices she had made? An unexpected text can change everything. Will it bring clarity or chaos? The evening air felt electric as Michael looked down at his phone, a message from Emma pulsing with unspoken intentions. His heart raced. Her words, unusually warm and inviting, stood in stark contrast to their last encounter. "Can we meet? I need to talk," it said, and the simplicity of the request left a whirlwind of emotions in its wake. He lingered on the screen, staring at her name, the memories flashing through his mind, moments of laughter, shared dreams, and untold emotions that had always danced just out of reach. What did she want now? A knot formed in his stomach, a mixture of hope and uncertainty curling around his thoughts. Would this be the moment they finally cast aside the shadows that lingered between them? Meanwhile, Laura watched him from across the room, her brow furrowing in concern. "You seem different lately, Michael," she remarked, her tone laced with curiosity. "There's something brewing beneath the surface." Michael glanced up, and in her eyes he saw a mirror reflecting the conflict within him. "It's just... a lot has changed since Emma and I last spoke. I think she's starting to come to terms with things." The weight of those words hung heavy in the air, and he realized that their situation was evolving faster than he anticipated. Laura leaned forward, her voice dropping to a softer tone. "You really care about her, don't you?" "I can see it. But you're also engaged. How do you reconcile that?" The question ignited a flicker of doubt in him. Could he truly balance his past love with his present commitment? Struggling with vulnerability, Michael found himself lost in thought. He craved the chance to tell Emma everything, yet the thought of hurting Laura unsettled him. He had to admit. Their relationship had changed him, weaving a tapestry of emotions that he had yet to fully understand. Emma, on the other hand, sat in her own world of introspection. Her heart raced as she processed Michael's message. It was as if he had broken through a dam she didn't know she was building. Standing before her fiancé, she felt a pang of guilt wash over her. "Tom," she began hesitantly, "can we talk? I feel like something's shifted." His eyes flared with alarm, and he dropped the magazine he had been reading, scrambling for his words. "What do you mean, Emma? Have you been—" She shook her head, desperate to clarify. "No, it's not that. But there's something I need to explore about myself, about us." The turbulence of her emotions rose up like a storm, battling against the comfortable stability she had created with Tom. What truths would emerge when they finally meet? She picked up her phone, scrolling through old messages from Michael. The laughter they shared, the shared dreams, and that lingering feeling of something left unsaid. Could she break the walls that had boxed her in? As nighttime draped the world around her, Emma wrestled with the gravity of her decision. The thought of breaking her engagement hovered at the edge of her consciousness. Is the past strong enough to hold her back from her future? The confusion weighed heavily on her heart, and she turned to the beach, the soft sound of crashing waves beckoning her to clarity. Standing at the familiar spot where they had once shared carefree moments, Emma held the letter Michael had never sent. It was a tangible piece of their past, a reflection of emotions so potent they could settle the tumult swirling inside her. The ocean roared, mirroring the chaos within her. She drew a shaky breath, contemplating the unresolved feelings that pulled her in two directions. As she stood alone, she felt poised on the edge of a revelation, a turning point driven by both fear and hope. Would she confront him and unveil the heart of her conflict, or would she turn away, retreating to the safety of her past? The question lingered in the air, a fragile thread connecting them across the distance, leaving unresolved tension as the night deepened around her. In the heart of chaos lies the truth waiting to be revealed. The evening air hung thick with unspoken words as Emma stood at the edge of the cliff, the sea crashing below, mirroring the tumult within her heart. Leaning against the cold stone barrier, she clutched Michael's letter, its words swirling in her mind like the turbulent waves. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, a final goodbye that seemed to echo her own regrets. She could feel the tightening knot in her chest as she recalled their past, moments filled with laughter and unfulfilled promises that haunted her now. The past few days had been a blur of emotions, each moment laden with meaning as she grappled with the decision of her engagement versus the pulse of her heart, which still beat for Michael. As if sensing her turmoil, Michael emerged from the shadows, his expression both hesitant and determined. "Hey," he said softly, the mere utterance sending waves of energy between them. "Hey," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. The gap between them felt vast, yet the air crackled with the weight of shared history. They stood in silence for a moment, the sound of the waves crashing against the rocks beneath them like a drumbeat, urging them to break free from their silence. Emma took a deep breath, her courage building from the depths of her longing. "I got your letter," she admitted, looking straight into his eyes. "I've been thinking a lot about us." Michael opened his mouth, then paused, his vulnerability stark against the backdrop of the setting sun. "What did you think?" he asked, his voice shaking slightly. "I think I've been running away from what we could have been." Regret seeped into her voice as she continued. "I'm not happy, Michael. Not truly. I thought getting engaged would make things clear, but it just made everything more confusing." Her admission hung in the air, and it took all of Michael's resolve not to step closer, to reach out and bridge the gap. I never said anything because I was afraid. Afraid of losing you, afraid of being honest," he confessed, his gaze dropping to the ground. "And now I see what silence has cost us both." Emma's heart raced at his words, a mix of relief and sorrow flooding through her. "Your silence hurt," she said, her voice trembling with the weight of the moment. "It made me feel unworthy, like I wasn't enough for you to fight for." His eyes flickered with a pained understanding, and he stepped forward, the space between them dissolving. "I wanted to fight, but I didn't know how," he admitted, his vulnerability stark against the tumultuous backdrop. "I didn't want to ruin what we had by confessing my feelings." As the last rays of sunlight slipped away, an unexpected stillness enveloped them. It was a moment fraught with realization, a breakthrough that laid bare their scars. The crashing waves reflected the chaos of their emotions, yet within their raw honesty lay the potential for healing. "Maybe we've both been too afraid to confront this," Emma whispered, searching his gaze for reassurance. "Maybe," he echoed, his voice stronger now. "But what if we could start anew? What if vulnerability is the path to true connection?" Emma felt a flicker of hope brighten the darkness surrounding them. "Can we really?" she asked, hope mingling with doubt, their past clawing at her defenses still. Before he could answer, the sound of approaching footsteps pulled their attention away. It was Laura, her presence a stark reminder of the complexities that entangled their lives. The mood shifted, tension adding to the air as they stepped back into their realities, their previous connection swirling into a mix of emotion and uncertainty. "Emma, there you are," Laura called, oblivious to the charged atmosphere. "We were looking for you." Michael cast one last glance at Emma, knowing that the night's confessions would shift their paths in unforeseen ways. The question loomed. Would they be brave enough to confront their deepest fears, or would they retreat into the safety of their separate lives, forever haunted by what could have been? As the sunlight filtered softly through the leaves, Michael and Emma found themselves wrapped in the aftermath of their cathartic encounter. The air was filled with a mixture of hope and apprehension, a fragile balance between what had been expressed and what remained unspoken. Emma sat on her couch, her mind racing with thoughts, as she looked out at the world beyond her window. "Do you think it's really possible to know true love?" she asked Laura, her longtime friend who had come over, sensing the weight of Emma's emotions. Laura leaned back, her brow creasing in thought. "I think it's less about certainty and more about the courage to be vulnerable." "What does your heart say?" she encouraged, her voice warm and steady. "It says the engagement feels wrong," Emma confessed, a tremor in her voice revealing the conflict inside her. "I love Jason, but sometimes it feels like I'm just following a script, one that was written without me." Laura nodded. Understanding gleamed in her eyes. "What are you scared of? Breaking free from those expectations? It's okay to want something different. You deserve to be genuinely happy." Emma felt a rush of emotions, fear and excitement intertwined. Her thoughts drifted back to Michael, the way he challenged her to question everything, including the very fabric of her decisions. "Maybe I need to talk to him again," she whispered, an ember of hope igniting within her. Meanwhile, across town, Michael sat at his kitchen table, the remnants of their conversation echoing in his mind like a gentle refrain. He mulled over every word, his understanding of love shifting remarkably. The fear that had once paralyzed him now paved the way for a new resolve. With a burst of inspiration, he pulled out a notepad. Determined to put pen to paper once more, each stroke felt like a step towards honesty, forming a bridge he could finally cross. "This time," he murmured to himself, "I'll write everything I couldn't say before." His heart raced as he contemplated the letter, each word a potential confession, a testament to the powerful connection he had with Emma. The intertwining of their journeys revealed an undeniable truth. This was not just about romantic love. It was about authenticity. Michael's transformation was mirrored in Emma as they both drew closer to their truths, and the societal pressures loomed, ready to challenge their decisions at every turn. Back at Emma's apartment, she felt a nervous energy in the room, as if destiny was tightening its grip. "What if I don't find that love again?" she asked Laura, her voice barely above a whisper. "You won't know until you take that leap. Love should feel freeing, not suffocating," Laura replied, her sincerity cutting through Emma's doubts. With each passing hour, the prospect of change drew closer. The realization that true love often calls for the courage to let go of what no longer serves us. Both Emma and Michael stood at a crossroads, caught between the past and an uncertain future. As evening fell, Michael stared at the blank page before him, lost in thought, a world of possibilities stretching out like the horizon. "Could this be the turning point for both of us?" he pondered, a mix of anxiety and anticipation swirling within him. The flow of their paths echoed with the bittersweet nature of love and growth, uncertainties lingering like shadows. Yet hope shimmered on the surface, and as they navigated their emotions, the promise of transformation offered a flicker of light in their shared darkness. Michael wrote, pouring his heart onto the page, inspired by the belief that perhaps this time he could change everything. As the day faded into a soft twilight, Michael found his heartbeat quickening, the weight of unspoken words pressing against his chest like a heavy stone. He sat in the sunlit corner of his room, the lingering remnants of their bittersweet journey swirling in his mind. "When was the last time you held back your feelings?" he wondered, staring blankly at the unfinished letter sitting in front of him. Would he have the courage to say it this time? If he could turn back time, what would he tell her? The girl whose laughter still danced in the corners of his heart, the room filled with a profound silence, but within him Waves of emotion crashed violently against the shores of his mind. He could feel the familiar pang of regret settle deep in his bones. Each memory played back like a reel, the moments they had shared echoing loudly, a gentle touch, a shared glance, each forgotten sigh. The words remained trapped inside, obscured by walls he had built around himself, walls now crumbling under the weight of realization. What would I say if I had the chance to speak my truth? He asked himself, desperation fraying at the edges of his thoughts. As he gathered his thoughts, he remembered how it felt to be vulnerable, the fear of judgment whispering harshly in his ear. The past events twisted together into a tapestry of missed opportunities. The truth hung in the air like a specter, urging him to speak, yet fear kept him mute. As we witness their bittersweet journey, he mused quietly, it becomes crucial to remember that every moment counts. Your words could change everything. Michael let his pen roam over the page, tracing the contours of his feelings, words spilling forth like a fountain after a long drought. The ink smudged momentarily, a dark reminder of the chaos brewing just beneath the surface. He paused, reflecting on how unspoken words can create invisible barriers in relationships, barriers he wished he could dismantle. Cherish your loved ones, don't leave anything unsaid, he wrote, the statement feeling like a desperate plea to himself and anyone who would listen. With each pen stroke, the burden began to lift, revealing fragments of hope. Hope that love could triumph over fear. Hope that honesty could weave a new path through their past. And as the light outside dimmed further, a sense of clarity settled over him. If this story resonates with anyone, he thought, perhaps it could be a lifeline for those trapped in their silence. The final words echoed in his heart. If this story touched your heart, like this video and subscribe for more narratives that explore the depths of love and vulnerability. Join our community where every voice matters. With this, he felt a connection beyond himself, the shared human experience of love, longing, and the quest for courage. As he gazed at the words on the page, Michael felt gratitude for the emotional journey he had embarked upon, one riddled with heartache, yet rich with possibility. Thank you for sharing this emotional journey with us, he whispered to the empty room, letting the weight of the moment sink in. Until next time, keep loving fearlessly and embrace every moment